Hey guys, so let's talk about kababae mong tao, kalalaki mong tao. Like we always hear this on the street, right? All the time. Not on the street. In our daily lives, we always hear these phrases.
From your relatives.
From everyone.
Yeah,
Actually, what does that mean? Like, I don't, like, I understand what the term means, you know, but then parang what does it mean exactly? Is there any way that we could possibly define it?
I mean, it's like, for example, like a lot of people say on this, like, for example, kababae mong tao, ang ingay mo, di ba? Tapos ang ingay-ingay mo, kababae mong tao. So basically, it's like talking about like gender stereotyping and like how we're being put in a box because of our gender, how we're asked to act or like demanded to act in a particular way based on our gender because we're male or female.
based on your assigned sex.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of people think that it's just binary kasi ang thinking nila. So it's either you're a boy or a girl and you should act accordingly.
Yeah. Like there's a certain set of rules for each one. Like,
Exactly. So like, you know, like for example, so that's why like kababae mong tao, you always hear that, or like kalalaki mong tao, umiiyak ka, you know, stuff like that. And I'm sure like a lot of us, we all have these experiences, right? In our daily lives, I'm sure at some point we've been boxed into behaving in some way, like based on these, you know, gender norms that we're like forced into, you know, like, do you guys have any personal experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it can go back as early as, let's say, like second, third grade, wherein
that's generally where you first feel it.
Yeah, for example, like, you know, I'm the only boy among sisters, and so I grew up watching like Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that. And when I would try to talk about it around a lot of these also younger boys, I would get, you know, I get made fun of, and they'd give me, you know, a hard time for it. But the one thing I do remember distinctly is when I was around like 11 years old, and I was a pretty tall kid. So pag lalaki, tas matangkad, basketball. Basketball.
I would know.
Yeah.
I would know.
Yeah, and so, you know, the school put me in the team, and they were training me a lot, but I was not good at basketball at all. And so they forced me into it, and there was one
Why did you let them put you on the team?
I was like 11, man, and I was just like, oh, sige na.
Basketball.
I'll be the guy to just block everybody. And so the drill was, everyone goes one by one, and you have to shoot as many free throws as you can at a certain amount of time, right? And so
I remember that.
I was the last in line, because I didn't really want to go, so I was like last in line. So everyone did it, everyone did really well. It was my turn, and I was just missing every single one. I was missing every single one, and then the more I missed, I heard people like laughing in the line, and then suddenly the gym coach started kind of like teasing me a little bit, and everybody started laughing even louder. And by the end of it, I was basically just like while it was missing, and I just remember that to be just like one of the most traumatic experiences. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm a guy, I'm tall, that. Like, is there something wrong with me? Like, just because I can't...
Don't like basketball?
Yeah, or don't like basketball.
Or couldn't,
Yeah, so I guess that's as early as I could trace it.
Speaking of early, ako naman, I can remember 5 years old. We had a class picture when my mom would laugh about it because, so my classmates were all sitting down in the front row. I'm short, so we're all in the front row. It's a class picture, and everybody was... Well, you're 5 years old, and I was the kind of kid that liked running around and whatever. So I was like sitting down like... Tapos that was, I think, one of the first few times where I heard that, kababae mong tao, ganyan ka umupo.
Wow.
That's pretty common.
Bata eh. Plus, I didn't have any idea what that was all about.
I mean, my personal experience is super related to that. Like I grew up, like my family is like super conservative. So my thing is really like, I had 2 boy cousins on my dad's side. And it was literally like, boys are blue, and girls are pink. And that was like something, and up till now, I think that's something that's affected my behavior. Like I don't even wear trousers. I really love pink. And I always think about how if that wasn't taught to me as a young girl,
would you have gone
would I have
differently?
actually liked pink? Or is it because like ever since that was all I had? Like, you know, I was surrounded by pink. Even when growing up, like I had a pink car driving me to school, and I had like pink bed sheets. Like my mom even had this problem where I wouldn't be able to sleep when we went on a trip to the States kasi yung bedsheets ko hindi pink because I'd grown up with like all pink, like to an extreme.
It's been ingrained.
So so I'm like extreme femininity has been something that has been like a major stereotype that was put onto me. That even now as an older woman, like I still feel that kind of gender stereotype every single day in terms of like talking about like my dating life. Like my mom always says to me like, kasi naman gusto kasi ng lalaki. Siya yung
ganyan.
Parang masyado ka kasing strong, dapat
masyado
kalma ka lang.
Et cetera, et
yes, or like ang ingay mo, ayaw yan ng lalaki, ayaw ng lalaki ng maingay na babae. Ayaw niya. You know, you're overpower. What I always hear is, you're overpowering your man. So that's why you're single. And it's always because, like, I'm too much for a guy.
Yeah.
Kasalanan pa ng babae.
Yeah. But, diba? Like, you know, talking about that, I always think, that's actually a major stereotype,
Yeah.
diba?
Yeah.
That I have to be mahinhin and like I have to serve, you know, be like a submissive girl in order to attract a man.
And it's
very
so normal to
backwards.
them. It's so normal to say these
Yeah.
things.
In
And it's-
relation to that, though, parang my experience was more when I was in like preteens, teenager, that awkward phase. And you know how there's always that girl who's like, oh, I'm not like other girls. I don't like pink.
Like you distance yourself from
yeah, and like you use that parang to put other girls down as a means to like lift yourself up, as if being
You're better than
feminine.
other girls.
Yeah, and that's not very helpful either. Like in a sense, I was rejecting what was being imposed on me, but at the same time, I was also being active in like the what is it? Like the bias against
Yeah.
women. Yeah.
Well, you,
No, go ahead.
yeah, I guess on the same note, it's a little less severe than Renzo's. It's more about, I mean, when people expect certain things of you, I never fit the mold of like, I was never really sporty, I was never really all that. I mean, I ran around and stuff, but
No
I mostly just fell on my
basketball.
face. No basketball. Nothing, no basketball. And so in high school, I was the guy who always had his face in a book.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize it until maybe like towards the end of my high school life. But it was the sort of thing where because of these expectations being placed on me, I had chosen to sort of be free of them by not interacting with the people who would put them on me. So I was very much, I found myself suddenly very far away from a lot of people. I was
Yeah.
withdrawn. I didn't really know how to talk to people.
Because you didn't want to like conform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And also because that was my way of not having to deal with it. Just like not interacting with it at all.
It was sort of a coping mechanism now.
Yeah,
It's
for
like
sure.
through all of our stories,
Yeah.
you kind
Yeah.
of tell the different ways that people cope with
Yeah.
being, I guess, forced into
Yeah.
behaving a
Yeah.
certain
And
way.
it also shows that the biggest problem is that it doesn't take into account that people are different.
Yeah.
And actually, I've had the similar result to you, wherein ever since I'd kind of realized that I'm not good at sports, I'm not interested in sports, I'm not really good at what other, or like interested in what other guys are, I've kind of distanced myself from other guys. I'm just like, I kind of assumed that I wouldn't really get along with them as much, and so
When
I
you can be wrong there too.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but then I naturally kind of became withdrawn because I didn't want. I wanted to kind of preempt any embarrassment or any
Exactly,
disconnect I
yeah.
would feel. So I
Yeah.
just
So may
just
fear
feeling
na,
awkward.
meron
Yeah.
na tayong fear na factor. Which is ang weird kasi parang there are some of us na who avoid, may iba naman na napapasok
Yeah,
talaga
yeah.
dun sa
Like
mga
overdo it almost.
gender bias, which means na
I know.
we're reacting to this something that's very present.
Yeah.
It's very, very
And
present.
for me,
diba?
what's super interesting with like all of us, like, you know, boys and girls, like we've all experienced like some kind of gender stereotyping in our lives. And so I think it's interesting to talk about how, you know, like it affects both males and females. So like I just, you know, maybe we can throw out like, you know, what are the, for you guys, like for guys, what are the stereotypes? What are the, like, ako blatantly, it's like that men can't have feelings.
Yeah,
diba?
that's the most obvious
what I
one.
see.
Yeah.
And I also think that's the most damaging one.
Definitely. And I feel like it's actually kind of the direct opposite of what is expected of a girl when it comes to dating, especially.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
with girls, it's like you're too aggressive, and with guys, you're expected to be aggressive. And You're
Yeah.
expected to be aggressive to the point where you are kind of infringing on her.
Yeah,
like,
you're
you know-
overbearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And-
Which
and-
leads to like the very damaging thing of like toxic masculinity.
Toxic
Yeah.
Well,
that
yeah.
starts out
That
from
starts
a gender
there.
stereotype.
Yeah, it starts
diba?
there.
Because it's
Safe to
like,
say.
oh, because a man has to be like this, and you
Yeah.
know that's where that super damaging quote of like boys will be boys, diba?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the scariest thing is that that is expected of a kid, like little kids, and you're like, oh, he's a little man or whatever. And it's
He's
like
a
he's a
little man.
child.
He's
yeah.
a
Let them be
child.
children.
Yeah.
Just let
Yeah,
them
yeah,
be.
let him grow up as he sees
Let them
fit.
explore, let them be children. What's so bad about, no, in connection to what you guys said about toxic masculinity is may mga relationships na nasisira dahil yung lalaki, at least in a hetero relationship, di ba? Yung lalaki, tinuruan siyang maging matapang ako,
Matapang,
ganon.
yeah.
Alam ko lahat. So, pag nagkakaproblema
Wala akong
siya,
emosyon.
hindi siya marunong humingi ng tulong.
Yeah.
Mismo.
Until it's too late.
Yeah.
So, yung
Mas masakit
babae
na lahat.
is left na parang, ha? Bakit hindi ka nagsabi? Kasi lalaki ako. Which is ang problem din. On the opposite, a flip side of the coin, yung, eto na yung nagmamansplain. Eto
Yeah.
yung parang, kailangan kasi ang lalaki, according to the stereotypes, ang lalaki kailangan niya alam niya lahat. So kahit hindi naman kailangan ng babae yung tulong, or kahit anybody in general, kahit hindi naman kailangan ng tulong, doon umi-enter, parang, ito, tutulungan kita, kasi lalaki ako at alam ko lahat. Ganun parang,
Yeah.
And I
Guys.
think in relation to that, naman, men not being allowed to have emotions, as women are viewed as lesser than or irrational because
Yeah,
we're
because
so
we're
Emotions, oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
Exactly.
Crazy girl.
And it's like, oh, I'm having a bad day or whatever. They're like, oh, are you on your period or something?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm just having a bad day. Like, I'm allowed to have emotions and just genuinely feel them and not have it tied to like my biology or
Yeah.
whatever.
They're super
Yeah.
invalidated that way. Like you're not
sure.
allowed to feel certain things just because like you're this or you're that. And I
Exactly.
feel like, yeah, as you said a while ago, the negative effects of the toxic masculinity. A lot of the times, we don't even realize it's there. Like
Yeah.
I gotta admit, like even when I was younger, growing up, like through high school and everything. I was like that before, and it took me a while to actually realize that. Oh yeah, I'm being toxic and I'm being overbearing.
Yeah, you have to understand where you're making mistakes.
Exactly.
basically.
So
Yeah.
like we all came from that.
But let's, like I was, like we're talking about personality, like behavior.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
behavior. But, that also exists in terms of like occupation. Like a lot of the gender stereotypes are like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
like women, like from youth, like women are like, you have to stay at home. You have to be like nurturing.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to, I mean, I'd like to think that now at this age it doesn't exist. But
Not
the truth
nearly as
is
much, but it still does. Yeah,
diba? Na
to some
parang
extent.
we're like our occupation has to be like home based
Yeah.
or like
Family-based.
family based.
Yeah.
But I
Or
think
like
at the same time, there's
kids-based.
no shame in wanting to have like a home-based.
Yeah, not at all. But
Yeah.
then
Want to,
the
yeah.
fact is, like, we're talking
agree.
about like stereotypes being an
Yeah.
expectation
Exactly,
of you,
yeah.
and which still exists. And so for men, what is it? Like, what's the stereotype there?
Well,
Diba? Parang-
there's a lot of pressure that gets put on men to deliver.
yeah.
Breadwinner.
Yeah,
become
that
the
whole
breadwinner.
stereotype of
Bring home the bacon.
be
Man of the
tough
house
man.
now.
Yeah.
And the terrible thing about that, I feel, is that a lot of the time, suddenly things like, let's go back to feelings. Suddenly having feelings is weakness. And that's a really, really terrible thing for, well, this is another topic altogether, but say someone's mental health, the way he feels about his family, all these things.
Or
Because,
like
you know,
being unable to seek help.
yeah, exactly. Because to them, that's
That's some
weakness.
sign of
Yes.
weakness.
Yeah, so it's pretty bad in that respect. And I think people don't really admit to it, but there's a lot of pressure that, I know some men personally, I would go so far as to say myself included, who feel a lot of pressure in terms of making something of themselves, being able to bring home the bacon, as they say. And sometimes it can be a lot to deal with.
Yeah,
in
and you know
process.
what? I feel that as a woman. Like, I mean, I feel every day I'm always like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? So imagine if you have to feel that, but then it's because society demands
Exactly.
it of you. Then
Yeah.
that's even
it's,
worse.
It's double.
But like even like talking about, just going back briefly on occupations, it's like a lot of, well, we'll talk about this later, but like for example, like a lot of children, like they always think that like, oh, this is a girl profession, like, this is
Yeah.
a boy
Yeah.
profession, right? Like,
hate that.
I mean, for a long time before, like we're so lucky to have moved past that, and now it's like women doctors are normal, women presidents are like, well,
Or male
we're
nurses.
lucky in the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
had, but like there's still that kind of, occupation na parang, okay, doctor, diba? Parang before that was
Yeah.
like a lot more blatant.
And it's ingrained so early to the point where it's even activities in kids' books. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
we're listing these jobs. Say if it's for a
Yeah,
girl or
dude.
for a boy, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that early.
Institutionalized siya.
Yeah, it
Yun
is,
yung
it really is.
problema. Institutionalized yung maling pagturo
Yes.
about gender, about
Yeah.
you being what does it mean to be a boy or a girl biologically. Tapos
Yeah.
ano pa ba yung ibang genders na pwedeng mag-exist. And maraming emotions na hindi na pa-process dahil sa expectations na nagbe-bear down dun sa mga bata.
Yeah.
So hindi tayo marunong, lumaki tayong marami tayong emosyon na hindi natin alam kung paano i-process.
Yeah, you're just
Diba?
taught to suppress everything.
And it's not just emotions, it's also like physical appearances, di ba?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Parang like, even like, I'm sure like, we're both curly girls, it's like, what is the expectation of a Filipino woman? Straight hair, di ba? Parang straight hair, thin,
Yeah.
like demure, like this is like, well, demure is not a physical appearance, but
Maria
like,
Clara.
even,
Physical state.
Maria Clara, but
Yeah.
like, even that, like there's so
stereotype.
many, so we talked about like behavior and occupation, but even as simple as the way you have to look as a
Beauty
guy
standards.
Yeah.
or as a girl, like what
Yeah.
are you expected to look at as guys?
Well, I'm expected to have much larger arms than this, that's for sure. A
Same.
lot more muscles, and that's toxic in itself because there are a lot of guys who I guess, it grows into the territory of body positivity and like in that
Exactly.
area.
Yeah.
But then
Ang lawak
that
niya, no?
expectation of men to always be tall, broad shoulders, and hunky, it really affects self-esteem, especially if you're not built that way naturally.
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
can you do?
And on top of that, you're not allowed to talk about how you feel pa, about how you look, and it just
Because
piles
that
up
in
into
itself is
that.
inherently
Nakakasakal siya.
girly.
Exactly.
It's bad.
Yeah. Or like for girls, how you have to be hairless everywhere.
Hairless, you have to be skinny, and it's so weird. This is kind of in relation naman to the topic, but I've had experiences where I'm lifting something heavy, and I'm not a small woman, so I'm lifting something heavy, and then a guy smaller than me. Obviously, I'm more capable of doing it. He'll carry it because he's a guy, and I'm a girl. I'm just like, what? In what relation? Like, I'm so much bigger than you, and then you're the one carrying pa the thing.
No,
like,
no, no,
just because I'm a girl.
I have a mini pet peeve, which is like when girls date guys and then the guys are like, akin yung bag mo. I hate that. It's like,
I brought my
can
own
carry my own bag and I bought this bag because it's cute
And it
goes
matches
with
my outfit.
It's not like,
I will
wow,
ask you help if
yeah,
I actually
need
need
it.
help.
It's like, don't take my bag. It makes me
Yeah.
cuter.
That's
But I mean,
another
it's-
toxic.
sorry,
Sorry,
go
that's
ahead.
another toxic stereotype for men to be chivalrous,
Exactly.
to be
Oh, yeah,
always
exactly.
opening the door, and if you don't do that, you're seen as disrespectful or rude.
Yeah.
When it's like
Yeah.
she can open the door. if she
Yeah,
wants.
but
But if
sometimes
you-
I mean, it's okay naman to open the door
Yeah.
for somebody.
I think there's
Pero-
something to be said about politeness versus chivalry in the
Yeah,
old
yeah,
term.
yeah.
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 I
And I
it's
think
really
it,
in your
like, I love
Yeah.
talking about this because for me it's about kindness.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in terms
Yeah.
of dating, it's like, you know, people are like, yeah, guys are expected to pay for my meals. But for me, it's like, as a person who dates a lot, as a person who dates a lot, it's like, I see it as an act of kindness, and I
Yeah.
would happily buy you your next meal because
Yeah.
I feel like it's like buying. It's an
Yeah, it's
exchange.
equivalent,
It's
yeah.
not that I expect you to pay for me. It's more like, parang you paid for this one, I'm gonna get the next one, and
Yeah.
it's like it's just like
Yeah.
giving and receiving.
Yeah, which,
Yeah.
which feels nice.
Yeah.
And,
Feels good.
and on
Agree
top
with
of
that.
what I was saying kanina, it's like I don't think the fault is necessarily on either person because I mean men were taught like, oh, you're supposed to carry it because she's
Yeah,
a
it's
woman,
about
and
what people are taught.
and yeah, so he's not like people who do that aren't necessarily like evil. Like, how dare you do
Yeah,
this
yeah.
to me?
Mali lang talaga yung
But yeah,
tinuro.
exactly. That's just the way that they're taught, and I don't really necessarily see any blame there.
Yeah, it's basically the mindset behind it. Like, if you're gonna open the door for a woman or hold her bag or pay for the meal, do it because you want,
want
to. And
to.
it's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Not
Not
because
because
it's
they're-
expected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Ang
because
ganda
not doing it makes you less of a man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's terrible. I
Ang
think.
ganda nung gusto ko i-bookmark yun, yung parang the thing about kindness and politeness versus chivalry and expectations or things that are expected of you. Ayun, ni-reiterate nyo nga na gawin nyo dahil because it's coming from somewhere good
Yeah,
inside of you.
genuine, so to
And
speak.
it's the same for women. Like, for example, like when I'm dating a guy, like this is really funny, but I love ironing. So like I will always be like, oh, let me iron, or like I would rather cook than like clean. Like that's my personal thing. And
yeah.
and for me, it's like I don't mind doing it, and everyone's like, you know, you're like so housewifey when I'm in a relationship. But the thing is, like, I don't mind doing it as an act of kindness.
Yeah.
Kindness.
Yeah.
But of the minute you're like, you expect me to do it because it's my role in the
Yeah.
relationship, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, I'm very like,
Yeah.
oh, let me get your shirt, I'll iron it. You know, like, I love doing that.
That's
I
just
love
being a
doing
nice
things.
person.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I love doing things
Let's just be real.
for
Ironing
my
is fun.
partner.
I like ironing.
Ironing is super fun.
Yeah.
Ako
Washing dishes is very
dishes.
therapeutic.
Oh.
Washing
Yeah.
dishes, therapeutic.
Neither.
But see, like, see,
I
you
can-
do
I can
it
do
too.
both.
See,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the point. Like, you would do it too. I do it, and I think I do it because I love that person, or
Yeah.
I care for that person, or you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
an act of kindness.
Yeah, but I
And
think
like
that,
anything
sorry.
beyond that, if you're like, you know what, you have to do this because you're a girl.
hate that.
That's where it goes.
Yeah.
wrong. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Red
but
flag.
I think among all the things that we had covered, what can be understood is that this is all learned behavior, diba? And like this is just sort of something that is maybe you need to look back at your intentions or something in order to sort of unlearn that behavior and just like Mitch enjoys cleaning, not because she's
I
a
don't
woman.
enjoy
I
cleaning.
mean, she
I
enjoys
like ironing.
Ironing.
She enjoys
Let that be
ironing.
established.
Mitch enjoys ironing, everybody, because not because she's a woman, but just because her as a person, she finds it therapeutic or whatever.
It's a nice ritual.
It's cool.
So basically, I think
Yeah.
it should be,
I like
you know, do what you want to do based on what you feel like doing and not because you're a guy or a girl.
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
one way to
That's
possibly-
the way to
covers
sort of bookend
everything.
it.
Yeah, one way to possibly unlearn that behavior is maybe to look at your intentions behind it. Like, am I doing this because I'm expected to do it, or am I doing this because I genuinely want to do
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
You know, I think that might help in sort of eradicating that way of thinking.
If I may, it's a bit of a backtrack, but like going back to this whole like kindness versus chivalry thing, because like it pops up a lot, right? Like until now, people
Yeah.
are like, I want a man who's chivalrous, or a man who will go, chivalry's not dead,
There are
I'm
Facebook
here.
posts.
Yeah, there's so many, there's so
I
much
am
stuff
God's
online.
Taking photos.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking photos of like guys seated at the MRT, and it's a girl like, why didn't he give his seat?
Yeah,
up?
yeah, yeah.
Stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
the problem I've always had with chivalry is that it assumes immediately that women are lesser. They have to be pandered to because there's only so much that's within their capacity of action. And that's why I really don't like chivalry as a concept. I like politeness. I like kindness.
Yes.
Because those things are genuine. Those are things you should give to everyone
Yeah.
equally.
And talking
I
about
just-
like giving up your seat, like I am a woman and I would give it up for someone who needed the seat more.
Yeah.
Regardless
Depende sa
of-
situation,
yeah.
di ba?
Like if it was a pregnant woman, it doesn't have to be a guy or a girl. It's just
Yeah.
whoever responds to
Yeah.
that with kindness.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna expect, but normally, you know, like I love when, like, for example, I'm on the train and then I'm like, okay, do you want this? Because pregnant woman, and then another person is gonna be like, you know, it's a reminder that you don't have to be a guy or a girl
Yeah.
to be able to give up your seat
Yeah.
to an elderly
Exactly.
person or someone who needs it.
Be
So
a
like-
good human being.
Yeah.
Yun.
We shouldn't gender kindness, basically.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way to put it.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yun.
kindness, period.
Yeah.
Irrelevant to like age and like, you know, race or, you know, it's just kindness
Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
board.
Across the
right?
board.
Are there any other personality traits that we want to talk about in terms of like, what else, as Filipinos, ano pa ba yung na-experience natin, di ba?
Just the fact that
Blatant.
women have to be quiet and that we have to, like, there's
Make
the whole
us
term where we
submissive.
have to shrink ourselves.
Kailangan
And-
maliit. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And the thing that irks me the most is when you're just being assertive or you're just, you're just,
Oh.
you just want to be treated as a woman, but then you're seen as angry.
Bossy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're seen as a diva, you're seen as bossy, whereas not to put men like in a bad light or anything. Whereas if a man were to do the same thing, it's like, oh yeah, he's just being a guy.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
He's just being a man.
Yeah, the bossy thing is so important because it like discourages women to like assert themselves.
Yeah, which is
Exactly.
terrible.
Like, but for men, it's like, hindi, ganyan talaga lalaki kasi.
Bossing lang.
It's like,
Ay, yung ganyan, lalaki kasi eh.
Yeah, lalaki
I hate
kasi siya.
that.
Or you
I
know
really
what?
hate
You know
that.
what's super annoying as a pet peeve? Yung when babae siguro yung nagdi-drive. I'm sure you hear
yeah.
that.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is
I've
the
heard that.
worst. Yung
I've
parang
heard
you're
that.
in the car and then you're like, ay ano ba yan? Babae siguro nagdi-drive. I hate
That's
that.
happened several times, and it feels so good when we drive up next to it and you see it's
And
a
it's a
guy.
guy.
Yeah.
like,
Like,
well,
but you know, that's like such a daily thing. Like, I
Yeah.
want to talk about those daily nuances that
Microaggressions,
we like.
basically.
Yeah,
Microaggressions.
microaggressions.
Yun, yung like, oh, she's so bossy. But then if you're just a guy, you're
Yeah.
driving, what else?
Ano pa bang naisip ko?
I mean, to the whole bossy thing, and I feel like guys who react that way to, you know, to very assertive women, that can be traced back to toxic masculinity and
Yeah.
how they were told, like all the way from a young age to not take that, or you should be the one who's assertive and you should
And
have
Yeah.
the power.
for mine also, like one thing I just remembered is like, like sexually, it's like guys have needs and girls don't.
And girls don't.
Girls
Oh
don't.
my
Yeah,
God.
that's
Yeah,
like
that's-
my mom is
That's
like
so
my mom always
dangerous.
tell me that she goes, lalaki kasi siya, where it's like cheating is tolerable for men because
Oh,
they have
God.
needs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then
girls
women
don't
are
have
expected
needs.
to just
Yeah,
put up
just
with
put
it
up with it,
also.
or like, you know, kasi, you know, kailangan niya,
giving me a headache.
dami siyang mistress.
Ah,
Kasi,
ito,
kasi
oo.
lalaki siya, marami siyang needs.
I
Pero
was
babae, kailangan deal with it.
Ayun, speaking of yung kunwari, yung sexual experience ng babae, na parang, tinatanong ako minsan na parang, have you ever faked your climax? Have you ever faked? No. If I don't get it, I'm gonna be honest with the guy and say I didn't.
Yeah.
And if I want to, I'm gonna tell the person. Tapos parang yung may ibang babae pa rin na, oh, I fake it kasi kailangan eh.
Because of his pride.
Kasi yung masisira yung pride nung chichi mo, yung
Who cares? Who cares?
diba?
So how, like, I mean, now that we've discussed that, like, can we talk about how does it come about? Like, how does gender stereotyping or gender bias, how does it begin? I mean, for me, I think it starts from a super young age.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I
starts
think it
from the
always
parenting,
starts
Yeah.
like
childhood.
And I think between, like, it's interesting because I was reading something earlier now, how between the age of like 2 to 6, it's already damaging. But
Yeah.
like, we'll talk about that later. But like, you know, it starts from parenting. Like, you know, for example, my mom saying, girl, pink, or like it starts with gender reveal party.
Even before they're born.
I only found out about those today, so I'm kind of
Yeah.
just
Gender reveal,
parties.
pwede nating i-shift, pwede naman nating assign sex reveal.
Maganda yun.
But then it's really, I mean, those parties, they're really more for the parents than they are for the
Yeah,
actual kid. And
Of
it really
course.
shows. And, it's,
Yeah.
and it really goes to show that at that, well, not even a young age, yun nga, before negative pa nga yung age nila.
Yeah,
Tapos yung pop mo yung balloon, tapos yung laman pink or blue.
Yeah.
Parang,
Yeah.
like, yeah, because pink is girl, and you know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, so we start with like, it starts with a young age
Yeah,
at parenting.
in my opinion, one of two places. If not at home, because for me, it didn't start at home. My family is
Same.
pretty like relaxed. I dare say liberal and somewhat left-leaning. But if not at home, then definitely in school.
School.
That's where I got it.
Yeah,
for
school.
sure.
I mean, let's talk
books.
about those ancient books, right? The ancient books which you were talking about earlier.
The sacred texts.
The sacred.
All,
Diba,
all
yung
the,
mga, like in general, like there's a lot of that that's circulating about on social media about the books which say babae,
Pang babae,
naglalaba,
pang lalaki.
lalaki.
Lalaki ng... pwede ba, hindi, pwede namang maglaba ang lalaki pag kailangan niya maglaba.
Mismo.
And it's sad because I'm thinking, like, what if there's a little girl there who wants to be, let's say,
Firefighter.
a firefighter, and she
Like,
puts
go for the
babae,
most,
'cause
like-
I want to be a firefighter,
Yeah.
or a boy who wants to be a keeper of the house, take care of the house, and he puts that as pang lalaki, and they get a wrong mark on
Yeah,
their
they
test.
get
Yeah,
a
a wrong
wrong
mark, or they get ostracized. People make
Yeah.
fun of them. Like it's really like it's a damaging
And as a kid,
sort of thing.
that affects your entire world.
yeah, it changes your worldview.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Naninegate yung experience nung bata, nag-e-explore lang yung bata, di ba?
Mismo.
Siyempre, pag sinabi niyang, ako, babae ako, gusto ko maging firefighter. Ganon. Tapos may nagsabi ng no. Sasabihin mo, teka, mali pala siya. Mali siya. So, tinuruan ka na.
Yeah.
Ilang taong ka? 5, kinder 1, kinder 2, tapos nandun yun sa libro mo,
Yeah.
na hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin nako-correct ng mga learning institutions natin.
Yeah.
Merong mga private school na nagpapalabas ng mga ganitong
progressive.
libro. And apparently, I found out na medyo yung ang ating DepEd ay mas may freedom mas may freedom yung private schools dun sa libro nila.
Yeah.
So hindi masyado nilang hawak kung anong lumalabas sa libro. So kahit mga private school, merong ganun. Tapos napaka-traditional ng mga pananaw
Public.
sa buhay. Bawal ka magganito, bawal ka magganyan, bawal ka maglaro ng car kasi pang lalaki siya.
Oh,
So
dapat mali
you're
ka lang.
telling the child no. You're telling the child a series of no's.
Yeah.
Dadalhin niya yan paglaki niya, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Tapos wala na, scarred for life.
Tapos maliban doon,
Scarred for
pag may
life si
bata na
bata.
siya, papasa niya.
Yeah.
Papasa
But
niya.
see, like, it's been, like, I mean, just going back, diba, we talked about parenting and, like, and, like, school, but the thing is, it's been institutionalized.
Yes.
It's not as if it was just our parents who thought of that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been, like, there for
Pabalik-balik.
society for years and years. It's literally been, like, embedded in society.
Yeah, it's
and
an
society has,
established thing.
like, established that
Yes.
this is
This
what
is the status
we should
quo.
be.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the pressures of, like, media doesn't help in changing what we see, diba? Parang as
yeah.
kids,
You're so
actually, yung
impressionable,
generation
diba?
ngayon mas okay. They
Yeah.
have like cool like gender
Oh yeah, all those,
neutral
yeah,
shows,
yeah,
but
I-
like
I know what you mean.
us as young people like ako, I just was like exposed to Disney princesses, and I was just like, parang, princess, paglalaban ako ng guy, So, stay at home lang ako, lalaban yung guy for me. And, I was really like, when I grew up, I want to be a princess because I don't have to do anything. And I don't do anything because guy will come save me and, while I'm sleeping, he will kiss me, which does not even have consent.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Walang consent.
Walang
Oo, tama.
consent. Diba? Parang, but like, like, I mean, any other thoughts on like media?
Yeah,
Ay,
I think
yes.
children are so impressionable kasi, and I don't know where the fault lies though, like on the parents for not, because it's hard to be able to filter all of that
Yeah.
for
and
sure.
control what they see.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Yeah, with
exactly,
YouTube
because
and
they can
everything.
choose
Yeah,
what
just
they want to see.
Kids know how to use the internet.
Which I
like-
think is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time because they have more access to maybe like ways that they can change their thinking.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's so much stuff out there that they can encounter that,
damaging,
that
yeah.
might damage them, exactly.
I mean, I just like want to veer it back to like how it came about. So what are the other things that media like contributes?
I gotta say, like, I mean, listening to any AM radio station, you come across a commercial that's for, let's say, laundry soap. Uy, mga misis, ito na, da 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 da.
Targeting.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
really? Like already, just from the first, first few words, you're already targeting a specific and applying this gender role and putting them in a box like that.
So commercials.
Yeah, commercials. And especially since they're written and produced to be so catchy and they stick to your brain for such a long time. Even then, the underlying message can be so ingrained and you don't even realize it later on.
Or even just depictions of characters in the media.
Serye.
Well, if you want to go there, you can.
No, please
Yeah,
expound.
I mean, I think Chai can talk better about this. Yeah, just because you've got more experience in the field. I don't watch TV.
No,
so.
I grew up watching mga teleserye kasi my mom would watch it, my tita would watch it, sometimes the house help would watch it. Tapos parang, okay, I can't go to the cartoons, I can't go to Cow and Chicken because they're watching, let's say, Pangako Sa'yo or something, whatever. Tapos parang, ito rin yung parang local siguro na version ng kunwari, kung may Disney princesses when we were younger, paglaki ng mga bata later on when they're 10 or when they're in their preteens, ito yung nakikita nila, diba? Pinapanood ng mga nanay nila, ng mga tita at ng mga household. So, nakikita nila may babae. Dapat ganun lang siya. Ano ang maganda? Ang maganda ay maputi, straight hair, tapos quiet na ganun.
Yeah.
Tapos kapag naging empowered ka na, kukulot yung buhok mo, tapos mag-short siya.
Oh, good.
Weird ka na. Ikaw na yung
Kontrabida.
kontrabida.
Tapos
Yeah.
ito yung parang medyo yung may mga subliminal messaging na tinuturo tayo sa mga bata na parang bakit pag short hair kontrabida, is it because you're also assigning the short hair to being a guy? Diba?
No.
Diba?
Yeah, that's true.
Oo.
Yeah.
Yun,
And the inverse applies to like kontrabida ng lalaki.
Mahabang
buhok. I used to have I used to have
Power.
really long hair,
Diba?
and it would give me a hard time.
yeah, ano
Like
yung
the hair to here, like I had it like mid-rib.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
You had that recently?
Yeah. All the way down.
All the way down.
And I think in relation to that, just general, like I'm sure both men and women can agree to this, just general depictions of what a man should look like, what a woman should look
Yeah.
like. And that, I mean, I obviously don't fit the specific stereotype, and that kind of, I think that's where my like rebellion or whatever came from. Like, oh, I'm not like other girls, not because I wanted to be, because I'm really not.
I
Like,
have no choice.
Yeah,
You
or
know.
you could call it like self-defense.
Yeah.
of sorts.
Self-defense.
Yeah, but then at the same time, that causes you to become sort of resentful
Yeah.
of other people who fit that stereotype.
Yeah.
And that it's a bad thing, like, oh, she's so typical, whatever, she looks like this, that, whatever.
Because the institution
Insert
told
the
us.
basic
The
comment.
Exactly.
institution told us that this is what we
Exactly.
should. Media told
Institution
us
is the
that
enemy.
this is what we should look like. Commercials tell us that like guys have to be macho.
Yeah.
Like
And it's like if you don't fit into that stereotype or if you don't fit into that expectation, you're less of a person.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
hate that because what is the connection? Like, what does that even mean? Like, even with all of this, like, if you really, really think about it, like, what is the point of assigning this color to this gender, this color to this gender? Like, literally, there's no reason
There's no
behind
logical basis
There's no
to it.
No, there
logical
isn't.
basis behind it.
Talagang wala.
Other than, I want girls to like pink, I want boys to like blue, and
Yeah.
that's it. And people don't realize that it's almost careless. Like, that careless imposition is harmful.
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
is it harmful? Like let's talk about that. Like
If I may chime in, I think it's because from the very beginning, we're taught that there is a divide between man and woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, for you, like, when I was a kid growing up, it was like, ew, they're girls.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
cooties, they like
Cooties.
pink.
Yeah.
Pink is like, ew. Later on when I was in high school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear pink shirts and stuff because I'm cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's all sorts of, like, subversions. And I think it's most damaging because, like I said, it encourages an unseen sort of divide between man and woman. And that's not how it should be.
I think it's super damaging because it assumes that gender is binary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for me,
There's
that's
also that for
that's
sure.
the scariest part because like it assumes that it's
There's
just
only
man and
two.
woman,
It's just
and
man
there's
and woman, yeah.
when it's like an entire spectrum.
There's a
the
right
gender,
answer
to wrong
yeah,
answer.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
it's like an entire spectrum. Na parang once you assign like these stereotypes,
If you
it's
make it
like
black
how
and
are you
white,
supposed
yeah,
to?
there's
it's not
no-
black and
yeah,
white. Gender
it's
is
really
not
not.
black and white.
Tapos if I may add pa to that, parang kasi tinuruan tayo na dalawa lang. So when somebody comes
Doesn't-
out and
doesn't
says,
fit that.
doesn't fit those
Yeah.
two, we treat them differently.
Yeah.
People get
we
on
react
unequal.
badly.
We maltreat them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they get all of these microaggressions and that's why meron tayong problema pagdating sa pagtanggap ng LGBTQ++ na community na umaabot pati sa lawmaking na
Yeah.
hindi sila nabibigyan ng tamang serbisyo at tamang benefits
Yeah.
katulad ng sa atin kasi nga naniniwala yung iba dyan na dalawa lang.
Yeah.
Yun ang
Exactly.
tinuturo nila sa mga bata. That,
See,
that
and-
anything, sorry, that
Go ahead.
anything that's outside of these two boxes should be treated as different. May othering na nangyayari.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. So
That's
if you
keyword.
don't, basically, if you don't fit into the stereotype, that's the most harmful thing. Is that you're seen as lesser than.
yes.
And
Yes.
that's I think that out of all of that, that's like the most harmful thing that you could, like you're lesser than. You don't fit into my stereotype. I don't understand what you are. You're not human. You're not someone who's worth my respect.
Yeah.
And I think that really is you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it
Teaches
The-
people to
the
be
core of
bad.
it,
yeah.
Yeah.
It gives them an excuse to other you.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. And for me, it's like the two ways that I can name that how it's like extremely harmful is that number one, again, it's taught to us when we're really young.
Yeah.
And these are the years na everything's developing. Our
Exactly.
self-esteem is developing, our
Yeah.
personal sense of identity is
Exactly.
developing, and we're not allowed to like what we want to like because
Yeah.
of these strange rules that again are not based in logic, as
don't make
Adriana
sense
said.
at all.
That's true.
And in the second way is, as Chai said, people don't think, a lot of people don't think that these microaggressions are really harmful kasi usapan lang yan, joke lang yan. But
Oh, I hate
as you
that.
said,
Joke lang.
it trickles all the way, it goes all the way up to people who are in power, who make
Yeah.
laws.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so it affects future legislation and law that's against people who are not fitting the stereotypes.
So
And that's
basically, a
harmful.
microaggression is still aggression.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
The-
piles
the
up
words,
into
the
this-
words there.
I want to talk more about the childhood part. You know, like, because, I was telling you guys earlier that, as early as like 6 years old, you, like, from between the ages of 2 to 6, you're defining for a child what girls can do and what boys can't do.
Yeah.
And at 6 years old, like, there's studies that, like, from 6 to 10, they've already decided that this is what they can do and this is what they can't do.
Yeah.
So, parang, like, when you're growing up, you're kind of like, oh, I can't, as a 6-year-old, because of these stereotypes, you're like, oh, I had this because, when I was like, I'd convinced myself na lampa ako, I can't do sports, I can't do that. Because as a young girl, I wasn't allowed to run around. Because, and ito yung reason, because pag nadapa ako, magkakapeklat ako. So pag nagkakapeklat ako, ayaw ka na
Ayaw
ng
ka ng
boys.
boys.
Kasi hindi na makinis yung legs. So that was like the reason why I wasn't allowed to run. And I
Yeah.
grew up thinking na, oh, I'm really bad at sports. And I just never did sports.
Yeah.
And so my hobbies were dancing, singing, theater, everything that didn't involve physical activity because I was convinced that I couldn't do it. And that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. And it's only now that I'm like 36 that I'm like, oh my God, I can try surfing and I can kind of do it.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
do yoga. Oh my God, this is amazing. But it took me such a long time to get over that kind of like,
Childhood coding.
yeah, childhood coding. And it's so early. It's so early. Like, that's why it's so damaging. Because, like, it's so early that you're telling a girl that this is what you can't do. And she carries that. She's decided na hindi niya kaya yon.
Yeah.
So, in relation to jobs, in relation to your self, like, affirmation, like, as a human being, like, ang dami mong hindi magagawa. Diba?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And to your point, actually, the fact that it's ingrained so young, I think it speaks volumes when you take a look at the difference between the roles imposed on women and the roles imposed on men. For example, for men, it's more like, kasi it's not a manly thing to do, hindi gagawin yan ng lalaki. But then for women, it's more like, hindi yan magugustuhan ng lalaki. It's so
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Centric
immediately you
around
see
the
a
man.
sense. Yeah, exactly. There's a
Yeah.
sense of favoritism there, like which I think is that's just going back to ridiculous toxic
Yeah,
masculinity.
definitely not. So the fact that it's ingrained in such a young age, that it really speaks volumes.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before. It's something as simple as clothing, diba? Because I'm wearing pants, it looks like a skirt. But then about how guys can't wear skirts, but girls can wear pants, shorts, whatever. It kind of, like, if you really think about it, it kind of perpetuates this message na if you're likened to a girl, it's bad. Pero girls can be kind of like guys because, it's not as bad, I guess. You know what I mean?
It's harmful because it, like, puts you nga into this box.
Yeah,
And,
and it doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
why can't guys wear skirts? Like, it's literally just pants na walang hate. Like,
Yeah.
what is the problem there?
But what's interesting to me also is like why for me one of the effects of the stigma is that it ends up with the culture bullying. Like, and for me
Yeah.
that is so damaging when
Yeah.
you're growing up. Like, talking about when you're from the age of like 2 to
Guys,
6, you're
like,
deciding what your future is, and then when you're entering puberty, you're beginning to question like, oh my God, I don't have muscular arms,
Yeah.
or oh my God, parang I have bigger boobs than like the girl here, she doesn't have boobs. And what happens is you start this culture of like bullying where you're like, ay nako, you're not a real girl. Or like, imagine, like, you know, I'm already privileged because that's the problem I had to deal with. But what if you're dealing with your sexuality when you're, you know, when you're like not sure what your gender identity is, when you have that problem, then that's even worse because there's this stereotype of what you should be, an expectation of like a cisgender, you know, cisgender qualities. And if you don't fit into that, then you're being bullied for...
Yeah, you're being bullied, and you're also inadvertently being taught, I think, to have a problem with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, the question suddenly is, what's wrong with me, not what's wrong with society.
And you're not allowed to ask other people these questions because they'll be like, why? Like, are you gay or something? Like, are you...
Yeah.
Diba? Because then you're scared of being bullied.
Yeah.
You're scared of being bullied when there's nothing, when
To
you
be
shouldn't
bullied
be
for.
scared
Yeah,
of being
exactly.
gay. You shouldn't be scared of like identifying with the gender that is, you know.
And I
you
think
feel
the worst
bad
part
for it.
is that people feel like they have nobody to ask tuloy. So you're just left alone with the struggling and with these questions.
Yeah.
When it's even shameful to ask questions, like as a guy or whatever, like, oh, I feel like I might be, I don't know, feeling this certain way. Like even just asking someone or talking about it is already shameful in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ang hirap lang kasi meron ka nang pressure sa labas, meron ka pang inner turmoil,
Exactly.
tapos wala ka
Yeah.
matatakbuhan.
Yeah.
Kawawa naman yung
That's so
boto.
difficult.
It encourages like self-questioning, diba? Pag may stigma na ganun. You're
Yeah.
like questioning yourself and like parang you can't be your true self
Yeah.
because you have to adhere to these norms.
Yeah.
So for me, yun yung talagang problem ng stigma.
Yeah.
Like problem of this like gender.
And I think what I can boil it down to is that humans, they can be so wildly and beautifully complicated in terms of how their minds work and how they want to identify themselves. And the fact that society wants to put them in just those two labels and such strict set of rules, it can cause all sorts of psychological problems,
For sure.
self-esteem issues, and damaging
Mental health.
Yeah, exactly.
And it spreads, not just
Into
to-
every aspect of your
It
life.
spreads not just to the various aspects nga. Parang from person to person pa siya, from you to your children or from you to your mga pamangkin, from you to yung mga kaibigan mo na natututo din from you, 'di ba? Parang bakit natin tinuturuan ang isa't isa ng mali?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Di ba?
And I think it comes down to we need to learn to question these things. Because as children, you're just like, you're supposed to like think. Why? Like, why am I supposed to like
Yeah.
think?
What's with pink?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we should, I guess, encourage
Encourage like a critical sense of,
like, exactly. Just encourage
Critical
people to
approach.
question why we're being made to suffer and where it's coming from, you know?
Yeah, it's also difficult because society also has, I mean, it's a different topic altogether, but it also has a problem with questioning authority. Like, you're not supposed to question your parents when they tell you to do something, or anyone who tells you otherwise just because they're older and they know better than you.
Yeah.
I guess it still comes down to the issue of power, diba?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you're taught from this age to be put in these two boxes, so you're easier to control, you're easier to manipulate, or you're easier to understand.
I have to
diba?
agree
Yeah,
with like
that's
that is like a
definitely-
big, like that's a big effect of the stigma.
Yeah.
That it's like it's what you were saying earlier. Na parang it separates
People.
separates people and defines gender
Yeah.
and defines like these are what you should be, and it kind of pitches you against one
It does.
another.
Yeah.
And it also makes you easier to manipulate and control.
Definitely.
And it
Divide and
encourages
conquer.
it
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of makes it competitive.
It
diba?
does.
Parang it's
It
like
does.
I'm more manly than you, or I'm more girly. Na parang who said this?
Who
Tapos,
cares?
you're not like other girls. What? So, wow, is that supposed to be a
You know what?
compliment?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's wrong with other girls?
We didn't even talk about this. You know, we were talking about, just going back briefly, we talked about, you know, youth, and we talked about it. We didn't even talk about it in the workplace. Like, it's, like, imagine the microaggression of, like there, you know, I'm
I
just...
think we need 3 more hours.
I know, no, but I'm
Yeah,
just
just
briefly,
for that.
like, we didn't cover gender
Yeah.
stereotyping in the workplace, which
Yeah.
is like, for example, how, you know, there's this, like, I remember before it was like, if I'm the only girl in a group of guys, then I have to be the one to make the coffee or
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
tea,
that's the typical,
because
yeah.
ako yung gagawa kasi ako yung babae, di ba? And it's like,
Or just the simple image of the boss being a male, the secretary being a female.
Yeah.
Like that in itself forms some sort of
Idea
Bias.
of power
Yeah.
Or yung
dynamics.
Power dynamics is
salaries.
just like-
Or yung salaries na mas mababa yung sa babae kaysa
Exactly.
sa lalaki. I mean, there are companies who don't do that anymore.
But it still happens
the law,
in certain
still
places.
allows that, di ba? Am I correct? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm
Pero
not a lawyer, so I
yeah,
can't
I'm
say for
also
sure.
not a lawyer, but yun yung
But it
last na
happens.
dinig ko na parang mas it still allows for these things to happen na mas mababa yung bayad sa babae kaysa sa lalaki for equal work. Why?
Exactly. It always comes down to why, no? Because why am I less capable of doing this non-gender specific job,
Yeah.
like folding paper, I don't know, and why is he getting paid more to do the exact same thing that I'm doing? It just doesn't make any sense. It always comes back to the question of why. And nobody really has an answer. Like, I can't possibly think of a reason why my biological reproductive makeup or whatever makes me less capable of folding a piece of paper, you
Yeah.
know? And it
At the
broadens
risk
from
of
there.
sounding extremely, extremely left, I think it favors those in power
Yes.
to do such a thing. And if you really think about it, it doesn't really benefit any of us. Like, it doesn't make any sense for us to be
Doesn't
turned
make
against
any
each other
sense.
over these sorts of things. So,
Ganun.
Answering why, that's a whole nother.
yeah,
that's a whole-
So I'm
That's a
really
whole
trying to
other
think of
Yeah.
a way to rebut that.
Yeah.
But I genuinely can't think of a logical reason as to why women are paid less than men or why these stereotypes exist other than just, I guess, simplifying things for those in power.
Yeah.
Diba? Just making us easier to manipulate.
Easier to manage.
yeah.
I think like we need to talk, like just go back simply and not how, like we're here and we're talking about the experiences of men versus women, and we
Yeah.
need to have that balance. It's not about women fighting, diba? Parang
No,
women
it
fighting to
shouldn't
be
be.
equal because like it applies to both of us.
Yeah, we're
Diba?
fighting the same
Yeah,
fight.
we need, well, not just men and women, like all genders,
Yes.
all people in this need to get rid of these stereotypes so that it's all
Yeah.
equal, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's harming all of us.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know?
a
affects
women's
everybody.
struggle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
everybody's.
it's
Yeah, because
everybody's
everyone
struggle.
suffers as a
And I
result.
think that's the thing, Eleba. It's like, I mean, going slightly off topic, it's like that's why people are scared of the word feminism because they think that feminism is
It's man-hating.
man-hating or like we want
they
this,
think
when
it's-
in
yeah,
reality
yeah,
it's
they
just
think it's
we
not.
want that,
Equality.
and that's why there are male feminists, and that's why we have to have these conversations
Yeah.
because we need to support each other because
Yes.
it's not just for us, it's for all spectrums.
Yeah,
Definitely.
as I've read before, like from the numerous women that I follow, that they say that feminist issues are men's issues as well. Like,
Exactly.
Because they aim to dismantle the same power structure that tells men that they can't feel things, that tells
Yeah.
men that they can't
Yeah.
do
Exactly.
this or do that based on the fact that they are or they
Men.
identify as men.
Yeah, the easy argument is always it takes off some of the societal pressure that's unnecessarily placed on men,
Yeah.
which men think is just, a lot of men are just like, that's just how it is. But really, at the end of the day, it should be an even playing field. And
Yeah.
I don't really see why it shouldn't be otherwise.
So why do we need to combat the gender stereotypes?
The boxes, so to speak.
Yeah, why do we need to get rid
break
of the boxes?
So I think we kind of
We've-
established how it's just generally harmful for everybody
Yeah.
and it helps
And
nobody.
It doesn't make sense to keep those kinds of things around.
Yeah, because once again, why?
Ay, mahirap din siya sa pagdating sa, for example, yung mga the more practical things like benefits, lawmaking, ganito. The Constitution clearly says, you're supposed to serve, the government is supposed to serve everybody regardless of your gender,
Gender.
your creed, etc., etc. So pag meron tayong power structures na ganito, meron tayong fini-favor na isa, dalawa, which is na ma-marginalize yung iba. Pagdating sa laws, pagdating sa, for example, even like the divorce bill, or yung ating mga laws on concubinage and ano yung isa? Adultery. For example, na mas mahirap i-prove ang concubinage compared to adultery. Bakit? Why is it so hard for the woman?
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can
Diba?
like this needs like
So
a whole
kung-
hour.
Oo,
Yeah,
this
no,
needs
no,
like a
no,
whole
more
day.
than.
So dun pumupunta yung brain ko ngayon kung bakit kailangan natin buwagin itong mga power structures na to. Kasi mahirap mabuhay sa isang lipunan na fini-favor ang isa lang, tapos minamarginalize yung iba.
Yeah, parang you just opened Pandora's box. Like we've been talking about the minuscule stuff, but when you talk
In
about
some
law
way,
making,
bam.
Yeah.
it's really like when you talk about nga yung mga kabit and like
Oo.
like who left who, and then that
Yeah.
means this person gets it's so
'Cause most of the
complex.
time it's
Yeah.
a matter of life and death, and that's
Yes,
serious. That's
yes.
serious.
Yeah.
That's super serious.
True.
So how do we talked about why, how. So now let's think about solutions. Like how do we combat
Sa-
these stereotypes?
Sa mga maliliit na bagay, beginning from maliliit
Yeah.
na bagay, like mga
Yeah.
usapang ganito.
Yeah.
Kailangan siyang pag-usapan because conversations, not just real conversations, but also art
Yeah.
Also, art
mediums,
is all mediums, because art for me it's introspection for the artist. Now, if when you put art out about these things, it forces people to also be introspective as a society, as a group, as as organizations, as
Et cetera,
whatever.
et cetera.
So art is introspection. Conversations are introspection.
Just going on introspection, I think the first step, like before we deal with outer, is acknowledging that these exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
True.
because parang we can't think of like steps until we realize
that
on
there's
our
a
own
problem.
na,
Yeah, 'cause it
you know,
starts with the self,
Yeah, we
I
have to
would say.
acknowledge that these stereotypes, like the gender bias,
Problema
this
siya.
exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that we each have, because it's institutionalized, we've each dealt with it and we all experience it and have contributed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So parang the first step, I think, is looking inwardly and realizing na, okay, this exists, like analyzing if you've contributed to it. Like, for
Yeah.
example,
Yes,
me,
introspection.
I think about it a lot in terms of, like, just on a personal note. Like, for me, it's like, I have grown up in an all-girl household because my dad died when I was really young. And so I always hire women. And because I work in fashion, I hire women sewers. And like for me, I remember when like guys come to apply to sew, it's very like,
It weirds
I'm
you out.
still
Jarring,
shocked.
it's a little
Yeah.
jarring.
And it sounds horrible to admit this as, as a feminist, but it's the truth. Na, it's been so like deeply rooted in society that when a guy comes to apply for a sewing job, I'm like, oh my God, haha, may lalaki na mag-a-apply. But in reality, I should be like, great.
Yeah.
But then I find that because I'm used to like hiring women and working
Yeah.
with women, I will favor women. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because although that's how I'm raised and that's how it's like, that's what's comfortable, it doesn't mean that that's what's right, di ba?
Yeah.
Na parang, by doing this, I'm like encouraging the perpetuation of it by saying na, oh my God, lalaki ka, hindi yan para sa'yo, which is wrong, di
Yeah.
ba? So like for me, that was a big step for me to be like, to catch myself thinking that when I've been, like to really sit down and be like, teka lang, I just perpetuated it. Like I
Yeah.
just contributed it by not hiring this person
Yeah.
Yeah.
based on his gender.
Yeah, that's
And I think
fair.
that's like the second step. It's more of introspection and checking your own intentions. If you're also encouraging this or you're also perpetuating
Yeah,
this
exactly.
harmful behavior. So it's like acknowledgement, introspection, and then where do we go from there?
Ang maganda kasi din sa ang maganda sa pakikipag-usap sa sarili mo, at saka when you're talking about it to other people, you cause people to also think about it
Yeah.
and start with themselves.
That's where it begins. Eh.
Diba?
It
So,
starts as a sort of questioning
Yeah.
of the
Teaching
perspective.
by example.
instead of, okay, meron tayong mga vicious cycles, gumawa tayo ng magagandang cycles
Yeah.
of questioning, and then once you start questioning yourself, talk to other people about
Yeah,
it, just keep
exactly.
talking about it, and then napapasa siya.
It's
You
like,
put out like a social media, whatever, your art piece, a conversation starter about these topics.
Yeah.
And so the more that it gets talked about, us as a human race, if you look at us as an organism, parang ito yung nagiging self-aware na tayo na parang, aha,
Yeah.
Yeah.
eto yun, ito yung
always-
problema.
I love that.
The thing I go back to is like, at what point is several grains of sand a pile of sand? And at what point do piles of sand become a beach? So I think that's a good way to think about it. It starts really, really small, but by sort of effecting all these small little changes, you push a big wave outward, which will alter how other people look at it.
And I think
I
that
love
sorry,
that.
go ahead.
No, that's all it is really. It's just making sure that you pass something positive along.
Yeah. And I think the encouraging thing about that is, like this whole thing, is that once again, it is learned behavior, and learned behavior
Can be
unlearned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is true.
But
So-
I love the grain of sand.
Yeah,
Like I
metaphor.
love that
Very
because
poetic.
Yeah, no, but also because it talks about how the little things contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parang it's just acknowledging that these little things that people don't take, that
Yeah.
people have taken for granted
Yeah.
for so long and
Yeah.
just accepted that this builds up.
Yeah.
So parang to point that out and like realize na, ops, yung pagpagawa mo ng kape sa babae dahil babae siya,
Mali
yan,
yan.
diba?
Ah,
Parang-
mismo.
So that's such a great.
And
Yeah.
I think that, as particularly as cis men, the steps you have to take to kind of get better is, number one, acknowledge that, as you said, we're always part of the problem, no matter how big
Yeah.
or how small. You were
And
never.
we're also by
Yeah.
default being cis men privileged.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. You have to
Acknowledging your privilege.
acknowledge your privilege and your place in society, and to acknowledge that you're always learning.
For
Yeah.
sure.
That you never stop learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement, and to realize that, you know, just because you are aware of these things now, aware of these power structures and how this can be misogynistic or this can be harmful to men,
Yeah.
you are not
Immune.
absolved. You're not immune
No.
of being that ever
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
You can still be that way. You can still be toxic and
It's a
problematic.
continuous
Yeah.
process.
Like for men, I
learning.
think for men all it would be is learn to ask questions and do not be afraid to be corrected because you will be wrong.
Yeah.
And someone has to teach you.
Ano yung sinabi ni Taylor Mali? Gusto ko yung sinabi ni Taylor Mali, he's a poet. Where, he said something along the lines of, one of the ways to know that your mind is still working is your ability to change your mind about things.
Yeah, exactly.
Diba?
Yeah.
So
Which
don't
is
be
important.
afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
Because
be
you can
afraid.
be wrong and you can be corrected, which
Yes.
is
I think
important.
a big step also is if, you know, for cis men, if a lot of this happens, like, of course, the locker room talk, when it's all
Of
just the
course,
guys.
yeah.
You have to call this out. You
Yes.
have to
You really
call
do.
this out.
You know.
It doesn't matter if these are your friends, and if you think, I mean, it is scary, but
Yeah.
then it's scarier to live in a world where this is perpetuated for
Exactly.
generations to
Because silence is compliance.
come. Exactly.
And you
exactly.
allow it to continue.
And so
that's
if
not a
you
good thing.
have your friends there with you, your guy friends making, you know, sexist jokes and making these remarks that are, you know, are harmful, call them out.
And I think that like calling out isn't just something that applies to cis men. It applies to
us.
all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like for
sure.
example,
Definitely.
I have very difficult conversations with my mom because you know, for someone who has been, you know, the thing is, she doesn't know it's wrong
Yeah.
to have gender bias because it's just been in her society
Yeah.
and in her brain. She doesn't know otherwise. But like, you know, and it's hard to call her out in a very positive way where she doesn't feel hurt. But I feel
Yeah.
like it's important for me to have that conversation with her and be like, you know, in everyday things that she tells me, just, you know, in my dating rituals or like in what is expected of me, like, you know, pakainin mo muna siya bago ka kumain. I have to explain constantly, like, you know, that's not how the world works. It doesn't mean that just because I'm a girl, I have to serve.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I mean, when you say the word call out, it sounds very scary.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
Yeah,
have
it's
to
a
be.
pretty loaded word.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Calling out doesn't have to be so scary. It
Yeah.
can just be like saying, like, you know, I understand that this is what
You were taught.
you were taught, and this is how the world was. But the fact is that this is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like not something that we should continue to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay. Like for
have
you to
ex-
tell
yeah,
me
it's
na,
good to explain why.
I think that is the next step, though. It's calling out, but doing it responsibly.
And respectfully.
Because if you're,
Educating.
yeah,
actually.
because if you're gonna attack a person, obviously they're not going to want to listen to your
Guilty
views.
of, frankly.
And you already knowing what you know, I feel like it's not really your obligation, but just being a kind person, you should try to make the effort to educate people when you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just call out respectfully, and maybe privately if possible. Because like you never know like how you could change a person, how you could help them to think a certain way. Because sometimes people really do just need help.
Yeah.
Yes.
and parang ako, it's also like, I mean, this is like a girl gang staple rule when we do our meetings, but I think it applies to everything, which is like you have to assume person's best intentions. You can't just get out there and be like, yeah, you're
go to
like,
war.
yeah, let's go to war. Like, you know,
That's
parang,
bullying
okay.
all over
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Yeah.
so parang it's like, I know, but let's talk about education. Like, I think that's the next step.
Yes.
How else can we educate people to like stop gender bias?
I think right now we're lucky to have the tool of social media. Because like going back to your mom, like she might have not had access to that information so easily.
Yeah.
But now so many young people, we're all on the same platform. And it's crazy actually how you could just think one thing and it'll reach 10,000 people, 20,000 people. So I think just using that,
It's a good start.
as corny as it sounds,
Yeah.
as a force for good, it
So-
really though.
yeah,
like,
yeah. I just,
yeah.
Natawa ka sa corny, no?
natawa ko siya, no? It was May the 4th.
But yeah, just using that as a force for good and using it to educate people. Since we're already on there anyway,
Yeah, this is true.
you know, I think social media and stuff like this, like it's really maybe our strongest or our closest tool to doing so.
True. I swear to God, I am not exempt from, you know, contributing to
A militaristic
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a good way of
Yes.
putting it.
Pero coming from this talk kasi, yung kunwari, we were talking about how na institutionalize yung maling pagturo nitong gender roles, etc. Siguro ako, this is mental note na din for me, next time when I find a book that teaches kids the wrong then the approach, let's say DepEd or CHED or whatever. Let's approach them and maybe come from a place of let's help the institution then to
Correct itself.
to correct itself
true.
kasi totoo nga naman yung sinabi natin kanina, hindi naman nila kasalanan na yun yung iniisip nila dahil yun lang din ang tinuro sa kanila.
Mismo.
So, tayo bilang mamamayang Pilipino, pag may nakita ka tayong libro, tapos mali, and then, I admit, I have gotten angry so many times before. Kaya nga ako rabbit
okay.
cat sa Twitter eh. Di ba? Sorry. I'm very sorry. Pero parang it's a continuous process to always keep in mind, be kind. Ano yung sabi Cinderella? Have courage and be kind. Charus. When you're doing these things. So yung in connection to the call-out culture, kung if we're gonna call out also then yung mga institusyon natin,
Yeah.
gawin natin siyang parang as a form of tulungan natin din sila
Yeah,
na
you're-
i-correct nila yung sarili nila.
Yeah.
Totally right about that. Because come to think of it, we do have a responsibility as citizens, but we also need to hold accountable those in power.
Yes.
Diba?
Yes.
I think also another way to like combat this is to parang engage with others. You know, like
Yeah, for
in
sure.
others, like because sometimes like the reason why, you know, we're so tied up in our own groups, in our own circles.
It gets kind of insular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So parang it's
Echo
important
chamber.
to engage with other people
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like
Get
parang
out there and say
get out there and
something,
engage with other and like get their experiences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like parang see why this needs to be changed. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
sorry, can I just add?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just feel like this issue needs to be something discussed across all classes. And we need to, I don't know how exactly, but we need to figure out a way to make this information accessible to anyone who doesn't necessarily have Twitter, who doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have
Yeah.
this or
Yeah,
that.
I super agree with that because, like, you know, when you think about the stereotyping, it really happens to like people who don't have access. When you think about the women with multiple burden,
Yeah.
diba, na parang they have to, you know, like I work a lot like with communities, and they often talk about how, you know, like the weavers of like fabrics, like the women, you know, when they get paid, the man takes, even if they didn't work on it, the men take half, and then they use it to buy beer and like cigarettes, but that the women, their half, which they worked for,
Obligated
that
to
doesn't,
spend
they're
for the
obligated
family.
to spend it for the family. So
Yeah.
parang, how do we, diba?
Sorry.
Parang, how do
Sorry.
we cascade down?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
problem
yeah,
eh.
yeah.
Because parang, like, you know, within people of privilege, it's easier to get that message across.
Yeah.
But then,
Definitely.
parang, how do you cascade lower? For me, that's the toughest part
That
of
is,
this
yeah.
issue. Because, like, you know, while we try to, like, engage with communities, you know, and, like, you know, like, there are women, like, my friend Isa, you know, like, that's what she does. You know, she does gender studies and, like, for gender education, I'm using the wrong terms, for, like, communities.
No, gender studies, acceptable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, for communities. And that's very
Yeah.
hard to do. So I think, I don't know, we need to think of
Ways
other
to-
ways.
Yeah, I mean, to the point a while ago of making sure that when you call someone out, because then this culture is kind of dictated that it's almost become like a bad word, you know. If you call someone out, you're automatically going for the jugular.
Yeah,
attacking
exactly.
them.
Yeah.
But
Like,
then
it's a scary buzzword, call out culture.
exactly,
Like, you know,
yeah.
it's-
But you know, as Mitch said, it can be respectful and it can be polite, and you do have to lay the following things down. Being privileged doesn't mean you're an evil person. Doesn't mean you're bad.
True.
It's the system that you're a part of that is flawed, not you. The
Yeah.
fact that you're a
This is
part of
true.
it doesn't mean that you're flawed. And I feel like
well said.
personally, this is my philosophy when it comes to dealing with these things online. I have kind of applied, when I see, for example, a woman getting extremely angry at someone posting misogynistic things online, the first thing I think of, I don't tell her, maybe you could say this more politely. I step in and I'm going to be the one who is more polite because I understand
Kung saan
that
nagagaling
She's
yung
a right to
anger.
be
yeah,
So she has a right to be angry,
And
yeah.
me, as a man, as a cis man, I come from a privileged space. I
Yeah.
am privileged enough to be able to tackle it with a more level head, because I don't feel it personally, like the same way she does. It doesn't affect me the same.
There's a level of
Yes.
detachment, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with all of this, it's really just, well, it's not a concrete way of doing it, but using your privilege talaga for good. and to help others. Because we're privileged to know all of this. And what we need to do is just constantly educate people, try to get it across the classes. It's a big
It's a lot of steps.
issue to tackle.
Yes.
But you know,
It's a
baby
big
steps.
issue, but if we have conversations, like you know, even going down, like it's having conversations with all kinds of people
For sure.
Yes.
that can contribute to really ending this gender stereotype.
Yeah.
So
Creative Sand Beach.
yeah, so mahabang-habang usapan talaga siya. And that's what we need. We need to keep talking and keep cascading this information in the ways that we know how. Mahaba-habang usapan.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Find ways
Won't
through
ways.
conversation.